English Planet. Appunti di inglese, a cura di Nicholas Youldon.
Good evening everybody, and welcome to another lesson in the series of English Planet. You're listening to the voice of your presenter and English teacher from the West Country of England, Nick Youldon. This week I intend to speak again in English. I will try to speak clearly with clear and simple phrases to help you understand. This week I want to introduce a new form of verb or time of the verb. I have already explained to you how the English language works in the present, in the past, and also in the future. In reality, you can do almost everything you want in English with the forms I have already introduced. But obviously, if you look at the grammar books, you will see there are many more forms of the verb. What can we do with these? One form which is very common, very much used in English, and in fact is also used in reasonable correspondence in the Italian language, particularly used in northern Italy, is known in English as the present perfect. To give an example, I can say, I have visited London on many occasions. I repeat, I have visited London on many occasions. From these examples you can see that the verb, the present perfect, is formed from the verb have, I have, and the participle form, the past participle form of the important verb, visit in this case. I have visited. This obviously follows for all the persons, different persons in the singular and the plural, changing only the auxiliary verb have. So you say, I have visited, you have visited, he has visited, she has visited, it has visited, we have visited, you have visited, they have visited. Now that's easy to learn, easy to memorize. It is valid for all verbs. You only have to change the verb and remember its past participle form. For example, I have eaten, ho mangiato. I have drunk, ho bevuto. I have walked, ho camminato. I have run, ho corso. I have seen, ho visto. So there, in approximately 2 minutes and with very few words, you have memorized a new form of all the verbs in English. That's the easy part. Now the difficult part is to decide what you can do with this verb form. How does it work? Let me explain the simple concept behind this. As I said, the name of this verb form is the present perfect. Okay? This means that this is a present form of the verb, not a past form of the verb. So don't get confusion with present and past time. Unfortunately, I believe that in Italian there is a situation which may cause confusion, because as I understand it, people in the north of Italy, and particularly in Piedmont, use a similar form known as the passato prossimo to speak about events in the past. Whereas in other parts of Italy they use a different form, a simple past form. Now, I'm not a teacher of Italian grammar, not even an Italian teacher, but it seems to me that certainly the physical form of the passato prossimo in Italian is identical to that of the present perfect in English, because Italian also says io ho visto, using the verb avere together with a participle, a past participle of a principal verb. So let's try to clarify this aspect of time which is involved. Consider two possibilities in English. Julius Caesar invaded Britain in 50 BC. Julius Caesar has invaded Britain in 50 BC. Only one of these sentences is grammatically correct, and there is a very good reason why only one sentence is correct, and it is not connected with the time when Julius Caesar invaded Britain. The correct sentence, as I hope you will have guessed, is Julius Caesar invaded Britain in 54 BC. Obviously the date doesn't matter, we're not studying history. On this occasion we must use the simple past form, not because the event was a long time ago, but for the simple reason that Julius Caesar is dead. Julius Caesar cannot repeat the event. Verbs in the past form in English do not try to classify time. They simply record, describe or talk about events which occurred in a particular specified known time in the past. Okay. But in our brains, in our consciousness, in our imagination and in our conversations, also in our writing, we have a whole category of past time which is effectively still alive, which is still connected to the present, and which can still be changed, added to. Pay attention. If I say, I have eaten 7 bananas today, I am effectively describing past events. The bananas no longer exist. But today does exist and I still exist. So there is the possibility that I can eat more bananas today, if possible, or if I'm still hungry for bananas. In fact, if I eat another 5 bananas before I go to bed, I have to change my past statement and say I have eaten 12 bananas in total today. But today has still not finished. When today has finished after midnight, if I still wish to talk about those bananas, I have to use the past and I have to say, yesterday I ate 12 bananas. Because today has finished. Today, my past history of today cannot be changed. I think from this example you can understand the importance of the fact that all the past is not the same. There is past which is complete and finished and detached, and there is past which is still alive, changeable, can be affected, and is still in operation, is still in the present. Consider this scenario. I meet my friend in the street. I know that my friend does not have a lot of money, but he or she is driving a Ferrari and is wearing designer jeans and is smiling, is very happy. I ask the question, "Oh, what's up? What has happened to you?" My friend answers, "I have won the lottery." Now, as a matter of fact, my friend bought, comprato, a ticket for the lottery 6 months ago, a long time ago. The lottery company informed my friend that he or she had won a lot of money 1 month ago, a long time ago. So she bought the ticket, simple past. The lottery company informed him or her, simple past, because these are events, determined events in a determined and known time in the past. We use the past simple. But when I look at my friend and talk to my friend, I'm interested in the present condition of my friend, and my friend will justify this present condition not by referring to the past events and the causes, but by the present condition, and we use the present perfect. I have won a lot of money. I have become rich. Sono diventato ricco. I am now happy. I don't know why, but many people seem to be happy if they have a lot of money. But we can see obviously that winning the money, becoming happy, and being happy are all present conditions. Present conditions created by events in the past, but we were not particularly interested in when these conditions were created. And in reality, we are not specifying any particular date or time. As an illustration of how this works, we can look at a series of questions which people can ask. When we don't know a person and we want information about a person, we ask them questions like, where have you been? Where have you lived? How many places have you worked in? How many cities have you lived in? Have you ever visited America? Here we are asking, all of these questions are asking about the person's past. But we're not interested in when these particular activities existed or non-existed, took place or did not take place. We are interested in their existing present experience of those things mentioned. If I say, have you visited America? I don't particularly want to know a single occasion and a single time when this may or may not have happened. I just want to know if you have any experience of being in America. Maybe I want to know if this person can give me information about the city of New York. If I ask a person, how many jobs have you had? I want to know in all their life experience, and I want to know what is their experience of work. If I then want more specific information about a particular job or particular work, I ask questions in the past. When did you work there? What work did you do there? What functions did you follow in that office? I ask those questions in the past because those activities are left, they remain in the past, they are disconnected from the present. The correct answer to the question, have you visited America, is yes, I have. The correct answer to the question, how many jobs have you had, is I have had 5 jobs. This is the information I want when I ask the question. There are, of course, alternative answers to my original question, which could be, for example, I haven't been to America, or I haven't worked anywhere. If you listen carefully to these answers, you will discover the correct method for using the present perfect in the negative form. The negative is formed simply by adding the negative not to the auxiliary verb have. I have, I haven't. You have, you haven't. He has, he hasn't. She has, she hasn't, etc., etc., etc. Here are some more examples. I haven't been to America. I haven't seen anyone today. I haven't eaten any bananas today. I haven't drunk anything this evening, officer. I'm okay to drive. This may be a useful answer if the police stop you when you're driving your car in the evening. Remember, the English police are very severe about drinking and driving. So the next day your wife could ask you, or your husband could ask you, where have you been? I've been in prison. On this happy ending, it's time to finish the lesson, or at least the first part of the lesson. We have to make a short interruption for some advertising. Stay tuned to Radio Dreamland. I'll be right back with you to have a little chat about something interesting in England. Be right back.
Meditazione planetaria del martedì. Radio Dreamland si unisce all'iniziativa della meditazione planetaria del martedì sera, organizzata dal New Earth Circle. Ogni martedì sera alle 21 vi invitiamo a partecipare alla meditazione planetaria dedicata a Madre Terra e a tutti i suoi figli di qualsiasi specie. Ognuno può unirsi al cerchio planetario dei meditanti partecipando da soli o con i propri cari, per una testimonianza di pace e di spiritualità che abbracci tutto il pianeta, per un atto d'amore verso Madre Terra, per un mondo antispecista. Unitevi con noi in meditazione seguendo la Nassinar, la musica del vuoto eseguita al flauto da Giancarlo Barbadoro. Ogni martedì alle 21. Per informazioni www.newearthcircle.org. Radio Dreamland. Share the vision.
Okay, you've heard some important information. Now we return to our English lesson. This is still your presenter from the West Country of England, one of the voices of eco-spirituality on Radio Dreamland. You're listening to Nick Youldon, and this evening I'd like to talk to you for a short while about something that happened to me yesterday, which is connected to the world of the invisible, the world of legend and history, and involves an interesting discovery made in the southeast of England in 1939. Yesterday I was watching a football match on television. At the same time, my wife was watching a film on television. My wife isn't interested in football, but I am sometimes interested in films. So I asked my wife what the film was about, and she described it. The title of the film in Italian is La nave sepolta. It's about an archaeological discovery in the south of England of a large ship, a very, very old ship, maybe 1,000 years, 2,000 years old, 2,000 years old almost, yeah. And this ship was buried in the ground on the property of a very rich lady. The story of the film was a story of the people involved in the archaeological excavation and research on this ship. Okay, so there was a film on television. It's a new film, a recent film. What was interesting to me is that my wife said the film was based on a novel, and the novel was based on a true story. I said to my wife, well, to me that sounds like the story of Sutton Hoo. Sutton Hoo, I repeat. If you want me to spell that, it's S-U-T-T-O-N-H-O-O, Sutton Hoo. Sutton Hoo is the name of a large house, a large private property in the southeast of England. My wife said, do you know about Sutton Hoo? I said, yes. And she said, why do you know about Sutton Hoo? And what do you know about Sutton Hoo? And I said, well, to be honest, I don't remember very much. I know it was an important discovery. And my wife said, well, where did you learn about this? I said, well, I don't remember. I think they taught it to me at school, or maybe I read articles or newspaper magazines, newspaper articles. I don't remember. The discussion ended here, but my curiosity started here because I said, well, what do I know about Sutton Hoo? What is Sutton Hoo? So I went to the computer, I went to Google, and I looked it up. And I discovered that Sutton Hoo effectively is one of the most important archaeological discoveries in Europe, one of the most important ship burial sites, ship burial being sepolture di una nave, in the whole of Europe and possibly in the world. This discovery in 1939, and this particular site is one of the most important historical discoveries in European history. But until yesterday, I had never really reflected on or considered this fact. I knew about Sutton Hoo, the information was in my head, but it was dormant. I was not being interested in it or using this information. Now that my curiosity has been stimulated, I began to look into the information and I discovered that this is effectively a part of what you can consider a historical cover-up. Information is not generally passed around about the importance of this discovery, and it covers a period of history which in England is considered the Dark Ages, a period of history where nothing happened after the fall of the Roman Empire, and there was an emptiness, an empty period of 600 years where apparently nothing happened, nobody existed, and nothing existed, which obviously is not historically possible. Now, the situation in 1939 is that there was a large house, a large property with a large area of land, which were private property in the possession of a rich lady who was in bad health and who in fact died about 3 years after these events. This lady discovered that on her land there were some strange hills or raised land which reached the height of about 150 meters in some places. They seemed to be similar to pyramids, and they seemed to this lady to be archaeologically curious or out of place, as it were, in normal natural terms. The lady contacted an archaeologist who was an amateur archaeologist, that means a dilettante, not an official archaeologist from the government or from the state or from the local area or a local museum, but an archaeologist who worked for his own personal interest. He was not financed by any university or research institution. He was paid a very small amount by the rich lady because they were curious about what was on this land. The archaeologist himself began to excavate and discovered the wooden remains of a ship which was buried under the ground. As work progressed, it became obvious that this was a major find, a very large ship. In fact, the ship turned out to be 27 meters in length, a kind of ship which was big enough to cross the Atlantic in the times when Columbus and the Europeans were crossing the Atlantic to America. And our archaeologist was convinced that the ship had a chamber, a secret chamber, which was a burial chamber and would contain some interesting artifacts if it was opened. Again, as work progressed, more and more institutions, museums, etc., became interested and began to understand how important this discovery could be, and they tried to interfere and distract our amateur archaeologist who was working there. But our good-natured archaeologist continued with his work until he made the most important discovery that has been made in Europe in the last century. He eventually managed to open what was a secret chamber on the ship, a burial chamber, and discovered that it contained a large collection of incredible treasures. Once this part of the discovery had been reached, it was inevitable that somebody important would take over the situation, and in fact everything came under the control of the British Museum. It is possible today to see an exhibition on the Sutton Hoo ship and the artifacts and treasures which were found. They're all in the possession of the British Museum in London, and I will now quote you a few of and describe some of what was included in this ship using the words of the British Museum itself. But before I go on to describe what the British Museum says, I would just like to describe what is interesting to me about this situation. This ship was a very large ship, as I say, 27 meters long. It is dated to about 600, the year 600 after Christ, which means 1,400 years ago, yes. Now, as I said before, that particular date is in a period of British history and also European history about which there is very, very little or no historical information, no documentation. Most of what we hear from that period is what they call legend, not history. Sutton Hoo is located on the coast of Britain, close to the North Sea. But the meaning here is that some people who theoretically did not exist transported a very large and heavy wooden ship from the sea or from a river onto a piece of land, onto a hill, put it into a large hole and covered it with a lot of earth. While they were doing that, they took a chamber on the ship and filled it with strange artifacts of jewelry, gold, treasures, silver, and various other expensive metals, beautiful artifacts, a sword, a helmet, and a shield, which obviously indicate that this was the tomb of a warrior, of an important person, probably of a king. But the question is, and it is also a question posed by the British Museum itself, who was the person who was so important that they created this tomb for him or her? Who were the people who created this memorial, this burial site? And indeed, why did they do this? Incidentally, no actual body was found on the ship, but this is explained by the British Museum and other experts by the fact that any body or other organic items on the ship would have been dissolved or decomposed by acidity in the land where it was buried. This is obviously perfectly credible and above discussion, and would explain why possibly they cannot give a name to the person buried on the site. But the museum itself says that there is obvious evidence that a body was on the site. These questions are important to me personally as an investigator of the world of the invisible, because I am curious to know exactly why much of history is considered only legend. I follow the spirit of Giancarlo Barbadoro, who insisted for a very long period that the legend of Rama and the legend of Phaeton in Piedmont is more than legend, but is in reality history. Here at Sutton Hoo in England, we have a similar situation. Is the ship history or legend? Let's hear the words of the British Museum. Sue Brunning, the curator of early medieval European collections at the British Museum, says this. The Sutton Hoo grave is remarkable for the majesty of its contents and its monumental scale, but it also rewrote our understanding of a time that we had previously misunderstood. Post-Roman Britain was considered to have entered the Dark Ages, where civilization in all aspects of life declined. Sutton Hoo proved otherwise. She continued, this single burial in a corner of Suffolk embodied a society of remarkable artistic achievement, complex belief systems, and far-reaching international connections, not to mention immense personal power and wealth. So, according to Sue Brunning, we don't have the work of a primitive society, and we don't have a legend. We have existence of proof, proven existence, concrete proof of a very remarkable civilization with artistic ability who have created something of real importance in Europe. But this, in our official history, is not recognized, is not acknowledged. There is no description, no documents. We don't know who the person was or who the people were who were involved in the construction of this artifact. Here is a description of a couple of the items, articles, artifacts found in the burial chamber. One artifact is a helmet, described like this. The helmet is covered in complicated imagery, including fighting and dancing warriors and fierce creatures. The face mask together forms a dragon, whose wings make the eyebrows, the sopracciglia, and tail and a moustache. Garnets line the eyebrows, but only one is backed with gold foil reflectors, perhaps a reference to the one-eyed god Odin. I have seen the illustrations of this article and others on the official British Museum website. Altogether, they make up an incredible collection of wonderful treasures, described like this by the British Museum. As an ensemble, they would have made the wearer appear majestic, and are the work of a master goldsmith, with skills that modern jewelers struggle to recreate. So 1500 years ago, more or less, in England, there was a civilization which could manufacture objects which are difficult to manufacture even today. So evidently the objects, the artifacts discovered or buried in Sutton Hoo are on the same level as what was viewed in a museum in Copenhagen recently by our director, Rosalba Natero, accompanied by our friends from the music group Lab Graal. She saw the Gunderstrup bowl, or the Gunderstrup cauldron. These things, also the collection from Sutton Hoo, are things which officially do not exist. They are invisible. They are not part of our official history. The only problem is that they do exist. They are visible, they are concrete, they are tangible. So why must they remain invisible? Why do we not have a true version of our own human history? In the words of television, the truth is out there. Let's keep looking. That's the end of English Planet for this week. Please tune in again to Radio Dreamland English Planet next Monday. In the meantime, remember to share the vision. This is Nick Youldon, your English presenter, saying good evening, and I hope you have a good week. Good night.